Wow. It's Thanksgiving week already, and it's going to be a different Thanksgiving. I'm used to hanging out with family every Thanksgiving, having a big meal and enjoying each other, and we're going to have to pare it back this year. And I'm going to have to adjust my attitude and really work on my Thanksgiving attitude. I don't know about you, but it's a little different this year. I've already told you this story. If you attend at JBF, you've already heard this story, but I'm going to maybe take it in a little bit different way. About 15 years ago, we went through a tough time in the church I was in. All of a sudden, out of the blue, there was a couple of leaders who started making some interesting accusations. They were like, Paul's not getting his work done, and he's not following through on projects that he should be doing. He's not an effective leader. They had a list of things. And the part that caught me off guard is that I had not heard any of these comments prior to this. And so I was struggling to try to figure this out, and it became divisive. There was a group of people who were like, that's not true, and they were very supportive. And then there was a few people who were like, well, I haven't really seen that, but I believe in these people who are making these complaints, and so I'm going to stick with them. And then there was a bunch of people in the middle who didn't know what to think or what to do. It was a rough time for me. There were times when I was in my office, on my knees, on the floor, sobbing. It physically hurt. My heart physically hurt. It felt like my heart was being torn in half. I was trying to figure out what was going on and why it was going on and what was true and what wasn't true. And there was this group of pastors where we got together about once a month and we prayed for each other. We talked about the things that were going on. And one of the pastors there, after hearing my story, he leaned forward in his chair and he looked me directly in the eye and he said, Paul, someday you're going to thank God for this. And something went off inside of me that said, yeah, but not right now. And this went on for months, and so there was a number of times when this pastor gave the same message. Paul, someday you'll thank God for this. And I think it resonated with me partially because I'd heard it before. This is Hebrews chapter 12, starting at verse 4. I'm going to read this. This is Hebrews 12, starting at verse 4, going through verse 11. This is what the writer of Hebrews says to the people that are reading his letter. In your struggle against sin, you've not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you've completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son. It says, my son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you. Because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son. So endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? If you're not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you're not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while, as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. Whoever wrote the book of Hebrews is encouraging people to see God as a good father who disciplines his children. He says, you haven't gotten to the point where you're shedding blood, dying for what you believe. And so hang in there, because God does discipline us. And he does give us difficulties in order to cause us to grow. He's basically telling them, hang in there. Someday you'll thank God for this, because he's a good father. He does what's good. I've I've spoke with people about this concept before, and there's been a number of people who have said, there's no good in this. This is evil. Well, you have to understand, these people probably ended up dying for their faith, at least some of them. And where's the good in that? And yet, this author is saying that God can use it for good, that by persevering and pressing through the difficult times, there's some growth that can happen, and God can use it ultimately for good. And, it's 15 years now since those events happened. And now I understand what God was doing, at least more so than what I did then. God was setting me up for the job that I do now. I'm an interim pastor. I work with churches that are struggling through some kind of disagreement. And by going through that myself, I understand at a deeper level now than I did then how it feels, how it hurts, and why it happens. And so I'm thinking about the situation that we're in now. We've just gone virtual. This is our first virtual meeting for the second time. And we had the opportunity to meet together, to encourage each other, to be face-to-face. And that's so much better than doing it via film. But this year's been tough. And someday, maybe we'll thank God for this. Maybe something big is going to happen. This morning, as I was getting ready, I had an aha moment. I was thinking, well, wait a minute. What if this isn't about shutting down ministry? What if this is about starting something new? Maybe God is pushing us to be thinking different about how to do ministry and how to relate to each other. And then my mind jumped to some friends of mine who start churches, but they don't start a typical church where there's 150, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 people. They start little house churches. Oftentimes, they call them New Testament churches. It's their way of saying that, while the New Testament was being written, most of the churches weren't 100 people. They weren't 50 people. They were more like 10, maybe 20 people who met in someone's home, who maybe sang a song together, and then went around the circle and maybe shared what God was saying to them. Most of the time, they didn't have a Bible. It was just too expensive to own a book like that. And a lot of the New Testament wasn't even written yet. Maybe they would have a letter from the Apostle Paul or another disciple. But most of the time, it was just a group of people hanging out together, oftentimes eating together, and just talking about the really deep struggles that they have with everyday life, and encouraging each other, and basically going around the circle saying, how can we help you live like Jesus more this week than you did last week? And I have friends who are starting churches specifically that are intended to only be 20 people. And when they get to 30, 40, 50, they split them in half and they create 2 churches out of that. And we can't all meet together. But what if we started meeting as just a couple of families in a home? And I'll send out the videos and I'll place some challenges for you. And it'll be an opportunity for you guys to sit, really talk about life, and really talk about the Bible and interact with it, and then encourage each other by going around the circle saying, now, how can I help you live life a little bit better this week? Live like Jesus a little bit more this week than last week. This could be really good for us. So I'm gonna leave 2 challenges for you this week. Thanksgiving week. Write down all the things you're thankful for. Literally, get out a sheet of paper with whoever's with you. Write down all the things you're thankful for. And then take that to another level. Write out all the things that you're not so thankful for, at least not yet. And then start praying, God, show me what you're really doing here so that someday I can thank you for this too. All right, so that's the first challenge. The second challenge is consider inviting another family over for Sunday, sitting down, watching the video that I'll do next week, and then interacting on it and discussing the challenge, and then going around the circle and talking about how you can be an encouragement to each other. So those are the two challenges that I have for you this week, and consider doing that, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great week. May God bless you. May God make you incredibly thankful. And I pray that Thanksgiving is truly meaningful for you this year. All right. See you next week.